The third argument for pacifism is that human life is the supreme value. So I just want to get this really clear. That is not true. That is simply not true. Human life is not the supreme value. So for example, if you tell me I'm going to kill you unless you kill those 10 children, I have to give up my life. Let's go even deeper. If I had to take the life of the German and Japanese doctors who performed the most grotesque experiments on human beings during World War II, I would, for sure. Human life is a critical value, but there's a gamut of values in which life is one of them. But our job is not to live as long and as comfortable as we can. Actually, to be a human being, and particularly to be a leader, is to consider the field of human life. And that's why we fought the Nazis in World War II. Human life is not the supreme value. In other words, good lives are more important than long lives. Goodness is ultimately more important than life. And the life in this world is not all there is. There's a larger vision. Now, can that be perverted? Can that be, hijacked, by visions of fundamentalism, which say, I'm going to kill you in order to get you to heaven? Of course it can be. Of course, that's a perversion and a degradation. But that doesn't mean that we actually say, because life is the only value, we're not going to fight Nazism. No, we will, because there's something higher than life. And every kid on that beach that we just saw at the opening of the movie Saving Private Ryan from Montana and Kansas and Idaho, right, who rolls out on that beach and knows that I have a very good chance of not surviving this beach, was saying that I'm a hero. And what is a hero? A hero means that I realize that there's a larger field of value to which I am in devotion, for which I'm willing to sacrifice my life. That's a shocking realization of enlightenment, right? The hero has a moment of enlightenment. Every one of those kids on that beach had a moment of enlightenment. They were willing, right, to sacrifice life for a higher vision. Now, stay very close to me. Does that not mean there are false causes? Of course there's false causes. Of course there are suicide bombers who go into a cafe and blow themselves up. But the fact that there's false causes doesn't mean there's not just causes. Obviously, you cannot respond to evil by saying, you guys got the field, we're withdrawing from the field. You can't do that. You have to be willing to fight for a just cause. And I have to be willing to give up my life for the sake of a just cause. If there's nothing I'm willing to die for, I'm not alive.